Scofield, thank you, sir. Ladies and gentlemen, before the defense presents a closing argument, does anyone need a break? Mr. Perry, you may proceed.
Cut the overhead from my presentation. All right. Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Proverbs 18:17 says the story of a witness is true when he first gets to the stand until confronted with cross-examination. And ironically, the center or the heart of the walnut on this particular case is found in 17 and 18 of your jury charges. 17 and 18 of the jury charges talks about the credibility of a witness and the fact that when you cross-examine a witness, you have to consider what they're saying during that time. In other words, if the witness statement that is given at one day back in May of 2012 after you signed a contract with the state of Tennessee changes, alters, is broken apart, or in the case of Jimmy Martin is decimated while he sits there, then you can't really give him much credit. Now, in this instance, Mr. Scofield, had he been Jimmy Martin, I guess would be pretty precise, and then my commentary at this point would be pretty much worthless because, as Mr. Scofield says, it's just a cut and dry case, and you shouldn't consider the fact of number one, the person who is delivering the message, number two, the witnesses that you've heard. You've heard from, starting at the top, you heard from the mother. The mother indicated that her son was somebody who was drafted number one back, I think, in the 1996, 1997 draft. He was in the first round, number 7 draft pick. And her son, prior to that, had spent a life of accomplishment, of athletic achievement. He also, in order to get to that point, had to have academic success. So you're talking about somebody who lived a life that is worth celebrating, a life that is the center of that family, I'm assuming, because that's the person that everybody says, hey, he's this, he's that, he's this, and if you notice, when she testified, I asked one question regarding the date that was when he was supposed to be coming in town to go to his sister's baby shower. That date is important because even though the state accepts this premise, hook, line, and sinker, that the trip was in June or in some date that you can't find based on tower records, etc., of 2010, if you look at the commentary, if you look at the evidence, not at Jimmy Martin, who knows how to trick cell phones and how to have somebody calling from another location, if you look at the evidence, the stuff that we had to ask to get in, not just one part of an evidence, not just a cut and slice, but look at all of it. You 12 individuals will go back and have the ability to look at not only the messages from Edna J. on the night of July 15th, which I am absolutely convinced he's in Atlanta meeting with Sheriff. It's only common sense. K, same place. 8:15, cool. 8:30, he's a little bit behind. 8:50, been here for 40 minutes. What you in? Van. All right. Now, whose car does he have? Whose car does Jimmy Martin say that he has during that time frame? He has Billy Ray Turner's car. Why does he have Billy Ray Turner's car? If they are supposed to be acting in concert, why does Sheriff need to ask Billy Ray to loan little Jimmy his car? It makes no sense. Why does he tell you all, not the state, not anybody else, until he says it? And you know when he said it on cross-examination, but he also said it a little bit before cross. Hopefully, I guess he was being more honest than normal, but he said it himself, even though nobody in the state's case in chief said it. Nobody mentions it. that he had a partner with him working during this time. And I asked him on cross-exam, because I've been waiting some 1,107 days to ask him, you had a partner with you during all this time, didn't you? Yes, sir. Because prior to that, on direct, he said it, oh, that text message, it was off because my partner that's texting it said it. Now, he was clear. That ain't Billy. That's some partner. I don't care. It's not my job to solve the crime of the century. It's not my job to step in the stead of the Memphis Police Department, who, when Jimmy comes to them for whatever reason, prior to being sentenced for whatever crime back in 2012, they didn't delve into the actual nuances of the case. They didn't ask him those questions. They didn't ask him about what partner he's talking about. They listened to some crazy, contrived case or the story about him telling them verbatim that this man is jumping through the woods like a deer, that he got shot at this point, that at this point we were running this way, and he also would mix his pronouns up. We, I, they, you don't know where he was. But if you look at those Merle Hampton text messages, it'll become clear that he's absolutely positively in Memphis at that time. It'll become clear on the night that he got killed that that person, Jimmy Martin, was not only the person who was there, who was working on setting it up, who didn't tell police back in 2012 that he had ever been in Lorenzen's apartment, but this week described it perfectly. In 2017, described it perfectly. And then he says it step by step, an additional step along the way, that yeah, I did go inside. And then finally, when he testified, I went inside, pistol drawn, and I was with Billy. But if you notice, how did Billy get there? He says he took Billy's car at Sheriff's request from Sheriff's home to Batesville, Mississippi. He also said that he went from there and took some guns that Sheriff supposedly gave him, that if you recall, and I asked because it is an important fact. Now, Claudia and Jimmy have been given these different agreements, and they all say the same. Well, yeah, it was a couple of meetings, and yeah, Billy might have been there, but they both said the same things on this. Billy never agreed to do something on anybody. Now that's important. I don't care what you say or how well it draws for the purposes of a presentation. They both said Billy Turner did not agree to do anything. Now, it's confusing somewhat on whether or not Billy was there and heard some roundtable meeting, because if you listen, she never saw a meeting with any guns. If you listen to Jimmy, Billy wasn't there at the meeting involving any guns. I don't remember him being there. That's the center meeting. That's to Jimmy that Sheriff gave him the guns to go and trade and get a 9mm and a 25. Ironically, the caliber of the spent shell casings that are out there on that scene. But according to them, Billy wasn't even at that meeting. Now, you'll hear a lot of conversation, different ways, and when you all go back there, y'all are going to discuss your various notes. Look at the cell phone records from Billy Turner on the days that are leading up. When he gives his car some weeks earlier, all of a sudden Jimmy does call him sometimes. Are those operational calls regarding this older car that Billy has loaned him? Billy's got his own way in the world. He's got his own business. He's got his own truck. He's also got a motorcycle. He's got his own place to live, his own girlfriend. The stuff about Billy and Sheriff having sex, if the officer was being candid with you, he said that was years ago. But he kept his relationship as far as trying to help her, like he would do anybody else in that church or in that community if they asked him. Let me be clear. Sheriff Wright came to Billy with a request to allow her cousin to use his car. He didn't give the keys to Jimmy. He didn't sit up and come up with some concept on what they were going to do together against Lorenzen. How many times have you been in a car with somebody 18 hours and you've never had a conversation about anything with them? That's law enforcement asking him about it. That's John Perry asking him about it and saying, y'all talk about anything. Y'all didn't talk about sports. Y'all didn't talk about the world. Y'all didn't talk about Cheryl. Y'all didn't talk about anything during this 18-hour trip where you drive to Atlanta. It's too early to try to go into the home. Y'all go to IHOP. Y'all don't go inside IHOP. And why are these points important? Because everywhere that you can try to say that this person can be seen on a camera, he doesn't try to validate it. But wherever you can tell that his car has been at a location, because he knows this, and if you listen to what he's saying, he's sitting there driving this man's car. He knows about tracking devices. He knows about the fact that if you pass certain areas that the license plate tags or whatever will be there. So he's not stupid. He's not saying, yeah, I went down to Atlanta 3 days before, but y'all ain't stupid either. You can read the information as it's there. Now I'm going to jump a little bit and I'm going to come back. Now, you have all of these different messages. You got Facebook. The Facebook messages, the only reason he was so nice about explaining those and, oh yeah, that was our secret message, etc. He never told the police about those messages. Ever. He didn't tell them until Billy Turner was in a jail cell for 3 months. He told them because they confronted him with getting the Facebook record. But you don't have those Facebook records from Billy. You got those Facebook records from Jimmy. This is in a code. Sheriff talking to Ren on days prior to him coming to Memphis is crystal clear that she's in Atlanta. You got a chance to read the whole thing. They got a daughter down in Atlanta that's doing a modeling show. And she's down there talking to him about that stuff while she's in Atlanta and while her cousin, little Jimmy, is rendezvousing with her. Ain't nobody talking about some stuff happened in June. And ain't nobody, how in the world is a window open in June, you're gonna have the confidence to do it in July? That doesn't make any sense. He's down there during that same week. And if you look at the records, when he's talking about where are you, and why is she talking about meeting at a location, same place as before, and why is it that you can't pinpoint what time you're going to arrive unless you're arriving at a place like Atlanta to do whatever you're trying to do? It doesn't make sense. But these are codes that are in messages. I mean, in messages that are in codes. When you're talking about Edna J to Edna J. I know you're tired of me and my party, but what's up? You good? Everybody's straight. That's from Jimmy to Shara. When Shara has been using Billy's car to allow her little cousin to drive, in Billy's mind, to legitimate locations, what did she tell him I'm going to do for you? You know, Lorenzen Wright is not just some basketball playing guy, what have you. He's a guy who in this area was a star. At Booker Washington, he was a star. University of Memphis, he was a star. And then he's a pro athlete in the Grizzlies, for the Grizzlies in this area. Do you think that he's out passing cards to people on some corner about doing it? Or do you think that Sheriff is going to explain to Billy, man, he knows all kind of bankers that have buildings. He knows all kind of folks that have, he knows the president of FedEx. He knows the president of this location. He can get you on with all kind of folks. You help me out like this. And then the setup call, why in the hell, if all the other calls are in code, is her code to Billy directly mentioning Ren? Because she's trying to put him in the situation. If something goes wrong, and let me also say this. From everything that I've read in our discovery and the stuff that I know and have tried to learn about Ren, he wasn't stupid. He wasn't going to go out on the road to meet Billy at midnight. What does it make sense to do that? Why wouldn't you tell the conversation between Shara and Ren being Jimmy got that dude's car and he broke down over off Callis Creek? Come on, let's go over there. They walk up on him. That's common sense. They walk up on him, and when they walk up on him, this punk comes up blasting. This ass trick stuff, as he calls it, shot him. And then ran him down and shot him again, probably with the same partner that he described that's texting her weeks earlier about we can't do it now, inside, outside. You don't have any inside, outside call from or text messages from Billy to Shara. Those are all text messages from Jimmy's friend who's going down the highway, and Shara, not Billy and Shara. There's nothing from Billy and Shara other than at midnight they're talking about some weird stuff, and people know in this inner circle of Shara how Shara is. You heard her own cousin. The cousin who supposedly knows about a murder plot, supposedly is scared, but is stunting at the party at the funeral in front of this guy's mama as a clout chaser. She's around walking around, and yeah, you can't keep her out the camera. Oh, come on, baby, I got you. I'm gonna walk the child to the bathroom back and forth because I'm the nanny, the pregnant nanny, and that makes sense to you. Come on now. This is a simple issue. What has happened here is they gave a contract to this guy before they had an opportunity to vet his story. They let him sign a document saying, no matter what you tell us, if it checks out or not, you're helping us solve this case. Because you're helping us solve it, you will have a get out of jail free card involved in it. They know that he has said that he used the guy who's the landscaper's car. The media builds a story up about, well, this is a lawn man. And as if Shara has some really, elaborate estate that he lives in the basement on and comes up, Miss Shara, can I cut your yard today? Do you need me to get your stuff out your pool house and all that? No, that's not it. This man has his own business in the area that he grew up in. And he cuts her yard, and he cuts other yards on that street, he cuts other yards on that block, and he's respected. And they want to try to make him out to be what he ain't, somebody to manipulate. If you look through the rest of his messages, there's no manipulation between Shara and Billy, other than the fact that he was nice enough to loan the car keys to his vehicle, an old roustabout vehicle, and let her cousin use it to go back and forth, supposedly for legitimate work, to go DJ or whatever it is that he wants to do during that time frame. But why, if I'm involved in some conspiracy to kill her husband, am I going to put my car in it? That doesn't make any sense. I want to give you my car keys and allow you to come up with a conspiracy involving me. I'm going to talk about this conspiracy in front of cousins that I don't know as well, other than what Claudia said. He was nice, he was prayerful around the house, and he would come over some. Now, if you take it with Claudia's words, they radioed her up. Everything that could be documented to be brought in court, you hadn't heard any. How are you going to have recordings where she is supposed to talk about Billy? Hopefully, I'm assuming that that's why the police would mic her up. And you don't have anything that at all that's bad from either Shara and Claudia about Billy, or from Claudia to any other third person about Billy. You don't have any of that. You just have word of mouth about what supposedly Billy and Shara told this guy in the days after regarding a murder. Now, another central point. Why you're trying to, if you're going to be involved in this, to the sense that you're trying to gather information, murder. Now, the thing about being enchanted or sprung or over the top about a female, you might kill somebody that you think that she's interested in, or you think that he's disrespecting you. That's not going to lure you into some crazy contrived murder plot. That's going to be somebody who thinks that they're going to get their legal fees paid, that thinks that they're going to get ahead because they don't have a job. somebody that does not have a job, that's coming up from Batesville to Collierville, putting themselves in the middle of this murder plot over and over. Come on, y'all. Why would they have to go after Billy? Why would the state of Tennessee put Billy in front of you all for this week to try to resolve this? Because the state of Tennessee is smart enough to know that they wrote a contract with a guy like Jimmy. And if you write a contract with a guy like Jimmy who has all the details of all the stuff that was supposed to be involved, how do you solve the murder of this son of Memphis? How do you solve it? You know, I've been involved in this now since 2017, and I've come to know Billy, and I know he's a stranger to y'all, and I know y'all are gonna have some stuff you can go back and forth on. Some of you are gonna have your minds already made up one way or the other. I don't, you know, I can't do anything to change that at this point other than to tell you what I really believe. I know that the information that I've gathered thus far is just like what came through Ms. Bogan. He's a salt of the earth type of guy. He gave his car to somebody. You don't have any kind of coded messages between he and this person's wife or ex-wife or mother of his children. You just don't have that with him. You have Billy going about life trying to work all day long with the hardest type of work that you can have out in the middle of the day in July, back-breaking work, trying to build his own life. And you'll have the photos of him walking with Shara at Shara's request, because Shara knows Billy ain't a fool. After Lorenzen goes missing and after Lorenzen's body is found in a field, he ain't dumb enough to think that all of this talk that y'all have regarding my car and stuff like that, all of this crazy stuff according to Jimmy, he's calling Billy on the day before the murder, and he doesn't have good coverage out there during that time, and he tries to call it back, and Jimmy says something about, I'm trying to get Sheriff's van. He ain't dumb. He realizes at that point, yeah, my car has been involved in something that I don't want it to be involved in. And yeah, did he cut Shara out of his life? Yes. She couldn't get in touch with him. And did she have to get a third party? Why did she have to use a third party? Because Billy did not have Shara's numbers. He didn't have anything about her in his life, because that caused an issue in his life. That's not him that's not somebody over the top in love. Look at those photos. Those photos were taken back in 2017, where they're outside of the house walking, and this person that he's supposed to be over the top in love with, he's social distancing more than folks social distanced last year. He's not walking hands in hands with this lady. That truck, that ain't somebody destitute who's living off of Shara. That's something that he's worked for, hard, back-breaking work for, that he thought that all of a sudden her dealing with her cousin has caused him issues. This, walking around out here, do you think if Shara, who's Googling, who's wondering what's going on, what is the deal with the gun found in the water, you think that she is not telling him, look, if you
object to this speculation that hasn't been testified about at all?
Oh, all of this is speculation.
Ladies and gentlemen.
Oh, sorry.
Ladies and gentlemen, lawyers can argue three things. They can argue the facts of the case, they can argue the law, and they can argue reasonable deductions from what you heard in court. And again, if a lawyer says something that's not supported by the record, you will in fact disregard it. You may proceed, Ms. Perry.
Thank you. There's no way that you can try to come up with a notion that is supposed to be favorable to the prosecution about what they're talking about outside. You don't know what they're talking about, but I know one thing. It ain't about Billy having done nothing to kill Mr. Wright, because it's not supported by anything. The only person that has all these details is Jimmy Martin. And so, in this situation where you give an absolute guarantee to a person, to the first, regarding we're not going to in any way prosecute you, and he gives multiple stories about what was supposed to happen, when they find out that in fact his car, Billy's car, was outside, and that's one of the PowerPoints, interesting enough. He says, well, you can't explain why, he couldn't explain why his car was outside that night. And you have Jimmy saying, I had his car on the night that he got killed. That's not rocket science. Of course he had his car on the night that he got killed. He killed him. That's silly. But you got a major star, and you got a guy that has a long service. When I first got involved, there was one day I got a question from a media person about, why did you take this? Why are you involved? And I, to be frank, was a little put off, but it was a unique question, and I think I got the answer. In looking at it, like I was saying earlier, Lorenzen and the friend and fraternity brother that came in here that described the fact that he had been on the couch in that apartment, but didn't see my guy in that apartment, but that he had been in that apartment, and described the layout of the apartment, same way that Jimmy, who had been in there, has described, misses his friend, and I understand and respect that. The city of Memphis misses a person who went off to the big life and came back and gave back some. There's no doubt about any of that. But here, just like Lorenzen is important to his family and friends, Billy Ray Turner is important to his. And you have, in this instance, a person who, if you take the credibility of that person and bolster it in behalf of what the state is saying, then I guess you'll get to the point that the state is saying is right. But I believe that if you take it and you shake it a little bit and look at the credibility of the way that he answered questions, that it was purely illogical. But more importantly, he repeatedly lied. He talks about the fact that he saw a 2-foot-long bolt cutters, and they showed you a picture of basically some handheld cutters that they're going to try to say cut barbed wire that was dense. And that when they send it off to the crime lab, you don't have a report saying this, in fact, is the bolt cutters that cut this wire. It just doesn't make sense. Radio splicing cutters, they're not the same as bolt cutters. But Jimmy Martin cut those bolts and threw them in some water somewhere. But when you measure Billy Ray Turner and Lorenzen Wright, of course, Lorenzen Wright, being a 7-footer that was talented, that went out into the world and did what he was supposed to do, seemingly is more important. He's worth it. He's worth the fact that this person has to come in and face these charges, because we've given a get-out-of-jail-free card to another person. And then you have Claudia. Claudia came in and testified. Did her testimony really damage Billy at all? I didn't think so. Other than the fact that she got put off by my questions towards her, was it making any sense? Did it make any sense if she says that Billy's response to Cheryl was the same as hers? What you want me to do about it, Cheryl? I'll fix to go out here and finish edging and go down the street. That's what that testimony was. It wasn't, yeah, we do need to, what we're going to do. How are we going to do it? It was Jimmy who was saying what he could do and how he was going to do. And Billy not being there whenever the guns were banning about. How do you add that up? What the hope is here, that you all, in consideration of who it is, are going to make a determination saying that Billy's life is worth it. It's worth of finding him guilty of something where the state fails. It's worth it to find him guilty when the state can't meet the burden of proof beyond a reasonable doubt. When I first took it, only thing Billy wants is this day. Billy wants this day, that before you all, he would have a chance to get his name back. You got a guy who has a horrible, horrible demeanor. You see that he has all the incentive in the world. He's angry at his cousin. And he just simply takes Billy's name and inserts it where his belongs. Did Jimmy Martin get you past proven not guilty is hard? And we got a video out there on that site. We possibly prove him not guilty. I know they presented Sergeant Evans, and Sergeant Evans' testimony was when no matter how they argue it, they argue with the I'll get louder approach, and I'll take the broom handle and point it and say that this has to be where it is, but their own sector person could not say definitively that he's out there on that field on that particular night. He said that he lived in a place, and if you notice when he's testifying without being cross-examined, he's saying stuff like, oh yeah, this is when Billy's in, and it's going to be in the pamphlet that you all look at. This is when Billy's at Sheriff's house. But you heard from Miss Bogan, then no, that evening he was at my house. And if we're going to try to bolster or lie about it or try to create an alibi, not what we're going to do when we create a gap ourselves. What we wanted to show is his demeanor. You look at him and you see and say and make your decision on whether or not this guy eating ice cream and cake with his church folks is in a few hours going to sit up and meet this guy on a dark road and kill him. Has anybody gotten you past unlikely? Has anybody gotten you past maybe not? Has anybody gotten you past perhaps? Perhaps Billy did it because he loaned his car for a couple of weeks. Perhaps he wanted to facilitate a murder without there being any conversation or testimony rather from the witness stand saying that he agreed that he wanted this man killed. So when you're in voir dire and they're asking all of these different questions about, well, if this person is involved in a bank robbery and this person says this and this person says that, and when somebody poses the question, well, what did he know? That's where we're at right now. What could he possibly have known if he's not part of any kind of coded language and he's not getting involved with that code with Shara or have any of them got past suspecting that we're suspecting that Billy did? Now, you have Frias. Frias is the goal to get you right here. That he gets Billy in, he arrests him, he talks to him, he says that other than the first 48, nobody is recorded in 2017. I haven't seen that policy. I'm not going to call the man a liar. I got too much respect for him, but I haven't seen that policy. I know that if that was going to be the policy, that instead of him acting like this, he's moving around in that chair more than Jimmy was. I know that if I'm going to establish that, why I didn't record him, I'm going to have that policy. He says his heart beating out of his chest. My heart be beating out of my chest too. You asking me after you arrested me while I'm at a gas station and pump with gas and got my Gatorade and thinking I'm going home for the day, and you arrested me on some stuff that Shara and Jimmy did, more likely than not, in my car. Yeah, I'm going to be heartbeat. Well, he tells me that he has had sex with Shara before. He's trying to be candid with the man. But he's wanting all the time. Ain't no recorder, no video in here. I'm just in some room with this guy that I don't know. You think my heart's not going to be beating a little bit? He's trying to be candid with him. Somebody that he just said he had sex with, you put a picture of her in front of you, and if he's squinting while he's looking at it and he can't tell, does that mean that he is trying to deny it? He told him he knew both of them, Jimmy and Shara. That doesn't mean that he's trying to evade his question. Means he probably can't tell if he ain't seen him in 5 years or whatever. He saw Shara a few days earlier. But from the photos that he had, they didn't show us what photos he was supposed to be looking at. But with the photos, if he can't tell who it is, that's not lying to him. Now, have you gone to Atlanta? Tell me about your trip to Atlanta. That's how you ask him. You ask somebody that question? Yeah, I've been to Atlanta with family and friends. Tell me what family and friends you've been to Atlanta with. Man, I'm through. We're not on equal ground here. I'm through talking. Let's end this. I'm not some idiot. I'm through talking. I take my chances. Just call me out in court. Hey, this is arraignment day. You want your own lawyer? I don't want nobody point. I'm getting my lawyer. I got my own in this world. I vote the way I want. I think the way that I want. I'm a man, and I'll take my chances with you all. And so when I'm asked that question from the media, what would he want with this? Why would he want a trial? He wants a trial because he's a man with a name. He said, what's a name? You know, Lorenzen's got a name. Internationally known. Basketball player. He's a good guy. Billy's got a name. Not internationally known, but locally known. Good guy. Good guy. A name is everything. A name is everything. A name is everything. No matter how humble the beginning is, your name is your everything. When I grew up, went to a church not too far from here, off of Kansas. And at a point around the 5th, 6th grade, I was reading about a guy named A. Philip Randolph. A. Philip Randolph was the over the Brotherhood of Sleeping Car Porter. A sleeping car porter is a guy back in the day that would be responsible for doing the servant duties on trains. And he would have the ability to start off his day in Memphis and go from here to St. Minneapolis or Chicago. And when I was doing the report, I was talking with my grandma about it, and she said, you know, sleeping car porter that went to this church years ago. By that time he passed, and her friends, Willella, she went to Willella the next time we reported Miss Willella, and said, you know, can you tell him about Walter and sleeping car porters? He's doing a report. So, of course, she suffered me in my questioning. And at the end of it, said, well, what do you want me to do? I'm a lawyer. Lady said, oh, I got 2 sons that are lawyers. Wow. So we went on, and it was a good conversation, and I put the stuff that she said in the report. But as time would have it, I discovered different things about those two boys. Discovered that one of the boys would go off and be a big-time city council member out in the West Coast and move back to Memphis and give back. He was president of his school when he was in school and all these good things. And one son was a good football player and went out as All-American. Went to school, got his law degree, and came back and put into his community. Time would tell that these lawyers would go on to other things. One would argue in front of the Supreme Court president that's known across this United States of America. Other son would be eulogized by a president of the United States of America. That's a name. More importantly than that, when a person goes to file something and says, well, I got rear-ended by a car or what have you, you go to a building that's named after the son across the street. This week, while you sit listening in judgment of Billy Ray Turner, you sit in a building named after that man. The only demarcation that's different is that it's Walter Bailey Jr. and not Walter Bailey Sr. That man worked every day as somebody who, when the bed sheets were messed up, they would call and, Porter, come here. When somebody was out of their drink, Porter, pour a drink. Every day, sometimes listening to different indignities, sometimes going into cities and doing different things. He ain't complaining, he wasn't out protesting and this and that. He instilled a sense of purpose and drive into his sons. Now, because of that name, will everybody who has a name be named after or have buildings named after them down the road? No. But the ability to have your name means something that's important. And think about it. Names are important. You think about the people that grew up in your era or that in the neighborhoods that you grew up in. I think of the men that look like me up the street. Elmo Hodges got up in the morning and got garbage. Saved his money and got garbage contracts and trucks. He's not a basketball player, but he's a man with a name. Abram Duff, delivery man, gets his own delivery routes, and he saves his pennies and builds his own little business, warehousing. That's a man. Larry Hastings, lived up the street. Started out when he got out the Marines, he went off with a plow. Mr. Plow would like to have a job here. By the time he died, he's plant manager. That's a man. Kevin Massey on the corner. Watch him get up in the morning, go to TVA, day in, day out, and I see him come home at 3 in the afternoon, change his clothes, go out to Memphis State, 4 or 5 years, he got a law degree. First lawyer I ever knew in my life, personally. That's a man. And you have names that will ring out from this point forward. So you can't sit up today and play a game with somebody off of somebody who is sitting here changing and playing games with his names. Yeah, I know how to change out cell phone chips. I knew how to make myself look like somebody else. I knew how to. And you look at the ping records of that Merwell Hampton. You see that it's not like what Mr. Evans said. It's pinging in Batesville, then pings in Memphis simultaneously. That's somebody that's going to lay out and kill a man that had a name, but replace it with a person who has another name. You know, they ask questions about, can you serve on this jury? Yeah, you can serve on a jury, and it's important to serve on a jury because you are not the family of Mr. Wright. I could never ask or think or expect Mr. Wright's mama to give Billy Ray Turner a fair trial. Why? Because that's her son. No matter what the state has, proof beyond a reasonable doubt ain't as important with her. It won't be, because he's associated with this mess. It's on you all, the 12 of you all, to apply your common sense. Can he have been duped out of the use of his car? And you listen to Claudia's words. When asked by me, y'all making fun of the fact how nice he is, etc., etc. Yeah. You will see the photos that have been introduced into evidence of Mr. Turner on that night. And you all think to yourselves and weigh it. And at the end of the day, you'll see it's not beyond a reasonable doubt that that man can do what they're trying to say that he did. In a few minutes, there'll be rebuttal about knocking down all the stuff that I'm saying. I'm sure it'll either be by Mr. Hackman or maybe by Mr. Scofield again. In a few minutes after that, y'all will be back there and we'll have an opportunity to listen and to argue and to go back and forth with each other. And I want you to understand that today is important for more reasons than you could ever imagine. And people say, well, why do we have this hard standard? Why shouldn't it be a lower standard? Because back in the 1780s, when they were trying to design a constitution, they found that it should be important. So George Mason and another little Jimmy that would end up actually going on to be a president, little Jimmy Madison, said it's important to have a Bill of Rights. Proof beyond a reasonable doubt is a cornerstone of our country. It's a cornerstone that people have died about. People have died from the Revolutionary War, to the War of 1812 to the Mexican-American War, to the Civil War, from Civil War to the Spanish-American War, to World War I, to World War II, Korea, Vietnam, Desert Storm. When our nation was attacked on 9/11, it was about our principles. It was about the reasons that we were going to end up fighting for another, to eradicate terrorism. And you got people right now standing on the verge of war. You got other nations that look at what we have, and people all the time say, oh, we ain't this, we ain't that. Hell, we ain't perfect, but we are close to it, because no matter what our disagreements on the street might be, that you're able to sit in judgment, colorblind, facts blind, except for the evidence that comes from right there. You all have sworn that you have the ability to do that.
And I'm just asking that you do it. No matter what you might like or dislike about each other, that you give in. And at the end of the day, if you're thinking that they failed to reach their burden of proof, you can't compromise that. And it doesn't mean that you compromise. You say, well, okay, well, y'all, if we don't have murder, then let's go all the way down the list and say he must have been an accomplice because he loaned his car. To be an accomplice because you loaned the car, you got to know what they're going to do in it. You have to know exactly what they're going to do in it. Oh, well, we'll come down here and go to conspiracy, which is the hope. I don't think anybody here thinks that somebody's telling you that, well, he told me that he was going to do X, Y, Z, could get you there. But Jimmy didn't even say that. Jimmy came up with a story about actually going to Atlanta, doing this stuff, and he tells you he has a partner that's texting Sharon that has never been charged with anything. Why? Because that's the partner that went into the place in Atlanta. And keep in mind this, Jimmy says he gets to Atlanta because Billy appears at his house and says, come with me to Alabama to do a lawn job. No lawnmower, no backhoe, no turnaround, no sickle, no rake, no brooms, nothing. Let's ride to Alabama. And he said, okay, that's cool. Let's go do it. No conversation, no nothing to show you all that he was in fact in that car with them going to kill Lorenzen Wright. And he's going to dump this mess in your chip. It's wrong. But you all have the ability to right it simply by going down 18 times. Not guilty, 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 not guilty. This is your right to do. Not your neighbor back there, because your neighbor's ability to change your mind can't happen. Not here. This is too important. Not guilty. Not they fail to meet their burden. I don't care. Not guilty. We ain't talking about not guilty. What we're supposed to come? I'm not compromising the damn thing. Not guilty. Strike it. Write it down. And you keep on going. You be the strength that you need. You be the strength in that room. You be that beacon of light to put an end to this foolishness. No deals. How many of y'all in this commercial? Don't raise no hand. Don't. No deals. No deals. If you go to gunshots in Shelby County, no deals. Who did deals? Who did deals? Who did deals with Jimmy Martin? Who did deals with Claudia Robinson? Who did deals in this case? Shelby County, Memphis Police Department. Who said no deals? Billy Ray Turner. So for me, another few minutes. Remember, 2 years ago, back in 19, Christmas Eve, maybe the day before Christmas Eve, sat down with Billy for a while. And as we talked about the case, because we thought we were getting ready to try back then. Sometimes we talked about music, sometimes we talked about jazz, sometimes we talked about gospel, whatever it might be. And we argue here or there about is Counter Blue a good album, this, that, or the other. We argue back and forth. So that's what we were able to do. Just talk about a gospel song. Neither one of us are singers at all. But it's a song that I like. It's about LaShawn Pace Roads, and it's about I Promise the Lord. I like it because she tells a story about a football player waiting on his daddy. I used to have to do that. And basically, 3 scenarios. And on the first scenario, while he's waiting on his daddy told him, don't you get in nobody's car. Have his friends come by. Now, come on, I'll take you home. No, I got to wait on my daddy. That's me. And then another come back with some girls. Hey, come with us, we'll go party. No, I got to wait on my daddy. And then a stranger came. But when the stranger was there, it was raining. It was raining. It was raining. It's easy to wait on your daddy when it ain't raining. It's easy to say, no, I want to give my situation to 12 strangers in Shelby County. Let them be my daddy on this. It's easy to wait if it ain't raining. But when it's raining, and court days because of COVID might get postponed, It ain't easy no more to not want to play. It ain't easy to say, I want you all to listen to what's going on and to measure Jimmy Martin and to see if Jimmy Martin is who I believe that he is. A stone cold, sitting on the back of Callis Creek killer that's changed and put my name in that place and take my chances with them. It's raining. It's raining. It's raining. Review it like you're going to give him that ride. Review it to give him that ride home. Because if they're not beyond a reasonable doubt, based off of the witnesses they have, y'all can't presuppose and help them out and feel bad or feel sorry for Mr. Scofield or feel sorry for whoever's going to stand up or Mr. Hagerman. You can't do that. It's too important. And if he's not guilty to you, you hang on, hold on, and fight it out. Because from the case and from the evidence, he's absolutely not guilty. Thank you.
It's scary. It's much here. At least it's about 12:40, 1:42. And Deputy Smith tells me that your lunch is here. If you want, we can stop and take a lunch break, and you'll hear the state's rebuttal after the lunch break. I will leave it up to you also. If you need a break before Hagerman Scofield presents a rebuttal argument, we'll take a break before that argument starts. Not a fair question, but I will leave it totally up to you. If you can, take a moment, retire to the jury room, discuss it. Let me know whether you want to hear the close rebuttal argument now or whether you want to eat lunch first, and we'll do whatever you ask me to do. You can follow Deputy Smith for a moment. Thank you all. Still cannot discuss the case amongst yourselves or with anyone else until all the arguments have been presented. Is out. We'll take a recess for a few minutes, get an answer from the jury. You can leave everyone in the courtroom because they might have a quick answer. They want to have to take everybody out and put them back in. Called according to recess, please cut all